Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the April 2nd, 2026 meeting of the Committee of Adjustment for Strathroy-Caradoc. My name is Frank Kennis. I'm Vice Chair sitting in for Jess Hirsch today. We'll begin with our land acknowledgement. The municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc acknowledges that it is located on Treaty 21 territory. We are thankful for the generations of people who have taken care of this land, including the Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, the Munsee Delaware First Nation, and the Oneida of the Thames. We'll begin with roll call. I'll turn it over to Sajal.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Sajal Asma, and I'm the Acting Secretary-Treasurer for the Committee of Adjustment tonight. I'll be hosting the meeting and managing participants. Committee members joining us this evening include Member Kumar, Member Vayan, Councillor Pelkman, Deputy Mayor McGuire, Councillor Derbyshire, and Member Kennis, who's also our Chair tonight. Municipal staff in attendance this evening are Alyssa Soldo, planner with the County of Middlesex, Jake DeRitter, manager of growth and development, and Melanie from the legal and legislative services team. Tonight we have 6 applications to be heard by the committee. The chair will introduce each application and provide the applicant and agent an opportunity to speak to the application. The planner will then follow with the report. The public will then be invited to make comments or ask questions about the application. The chair will then call upon the committee to ask questions and make comments before the chair calls for a vote on the application. Once a decision is made, there is a 20-day appeal period from the date of decision for minor variances and 20 days from the date of notice of decision for consent. If anyone wishes to be notified of the decision, you can make the request today or make a written request following this meeting. For our virtual participants, please ensure your name is visible on your video, and we ask that you keep yourself muted until it is your turn to speak. Thank you.
Okay, so item number 2 on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Can I get someone to make the motion? Deputy Mayor, Councillor Pelkman, all in favor? That's carried. Next is the declaration of pecuniary interest. Anyone on the committee with an interest, pecuniary interest tonight?
I think I do.
Seeing none?
Hold on, I think I got it. Sorry, I think I got it for number 1, the Falconbridge one.
This one here?
Is that it?
The minor variance of Falconbridge?
Yeah. Yes, I
So
do.
that's 5.1.
I was just trying to get into this thing here.
Yeah, so Councillor Derbyshire will be declaring a conflict on 5.1.
As I'm in the area
Okay.
that is notified of this, so.
Okay, all right, thank you. Next, we come to the approval of the minutes. So we have the minutes of the March 5th, 2025 meeting. The recommendation is to approve those minutes. Would someone make the motion? Member Vayan, Councillor Pelkman, any questions? All in favor? That is carried. All right, so we move into the submissions for tonight. First one is 5.1, an application for minor variance at 6998 Falconbridge Drive. The owner of the property is Nigel Hegarty. The agent is Paul Banman. Is anyone here in the crowd on that one tonight? Don't see anyone. I will turn it over to Alyssa to take us through it.
Thank you, Chair. The minor variance application before committee this evening is seeking relief from section 18.34 of the zoning bylaw to permit a minimum interior side yard setback of 3 meters, whereas 15 meters is required. The application will facilitate the construction of a new single detached dwelling that is built closer to the side yard than what currently exists. The subject property is located on the northwest side of Falconbridge Drive, southwest of the intersection at Glen Oak Road and Falconbridge Drive. The property is approximately 9.48 hectares in size with 150.5 meters of frontage. The property contains an existing dwelling on municipal water and a private septic system and a pole barn. No comments were provided by the public prior to the preparation of this report. The St. Clair Region Conservation Authority has commented that they have no concerns with the proposed minor variance. I have reviewed the application against the 4 tests of the Planning Act, and as indicated in the report, it is staff's opinion that this application does meet those 4 tests. As such, I am recommending that minor variance application A6-2026 be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Alyssa. Anyone here or online to speak to this application? Seeing none, committee members, any comments or questions? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. I'll put the motion forward to approve it.
Okay, so that's the approve minor variance A6 2026. Seconder, Councillor or Committee Member Kumar. Any other questions? All in favor? That is passed. So next is again a minor variance application for minor variance A6 2026 at 6. Oops, that's the wrong one. This is this is at Allen Road, A7 2026 at 22283 Allen Road. The owner of the property is Paul and Heather Shipway. I believe Mr. Shipway is with us in the audience tonight. And speaking on this application, we have Rebecca Elphick, who I believe is online to take us through this one. Rebecca.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this application for minor variance A7 2026 concerns 22283 Allen Road, located north of Adelaide Road and east of Mill Road, just beyond the Mount Bridges settlement, in an area of low-density residential and agricultural use. The application seeks relief from the zoning bylaw to permit an increased maximum height for an accessory building and to permit an increased accessory lot coverage. The minor variance would facilitate the construction of a detached garage in the rear of the property for the purpose of storing classic vehicles and recreational equipment. Where the zoning bylaw establishes a maximum height of 4.5 meters for accessory buildings, the applicant proposes a height of 5.28 meters for the detached garage. And where the zoning bylaw requires that in the R5 zone, accessory lot coverage does not exceed 2.5% or the gross floor area of the main building, the applicant proposes accessory lot coverage of 4.3% and that it exceeds the gross floor area of the main building. In addition to the detached garage, a single detached dwelling with attached garage is proposed, which will be serviced with individual on-site water and sewage services. Following circulation of the application, comments were received from the Manager of Growth and Development, noting that the grading and drainage plan must generally conform to the plan that was submitted with the consent application. I recommend that this can be addressed at the time of issuing a building permit. No other comments were received from the general public in support or opposition of this application following circulation in accordance with the Planning Act. Upon review of this application, I recommend that the variances requested are minor in nature, are an appropriate use of land, and maintain the intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw. I'd be happy to answer any questions or provide additional information to the committee at this time before you consider anything further. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Any comments from the applicant, Mr. Shipway, at all?
Yeah, I think that staff and planners did a great job. We're appreciative for being here and looking forward to being members of the community.
Great, thank you. Committee members, any comments or questions?
Excuse me, seems like a frog in my throat here, Chair, but this is one of these applications in the rural residential areas where I'm really happy to see people are making the best use of the lands. These are large lots, and frequently people are looking to do more on on these type of bigger lots in municipalities like Strathroy itself or down in Mount Bridges, where it's more clustered together, and that causes a lot of difficulties. But when we have these large rural residential lots, this is where these oversized buildings should be, and land use should be crowded in maybe a little bit more than what's permitted, such that they're here for a minor variance. So I support this type of development 100%. I think it's a great use of this irregular lot, and these are true gems in any community where they exist. So well done.
Councillor.
Yeah, I was just going to add that in terms of impacting the neighboring residences, this building's a long ways away from any house. It's not really going to be out of place because even some of those houses have pretty significant height to them. And, you know, in terms of people building the oversized buildings, rather have the stuff stored in a building than outside the building where everybody can see it. So to me, I'm in favor of this proposal.
Any other comments? So the recommendation is to approve this minor variance A7 2026. Would someone make the motion? The Deputy Mayor, Councillor Pelkman, all in favor? That's carried. All right, next we come to the third application for variance tonight, 5.3. It's minor variance application A8 2026 at 392 2nd Street. The owner of the property is Matt May, and Strick Waldenelli Moniz, their representative, Jamie Robertson, is online representing them. Anyone else here on this topic?
Yep.
Okay.
So I'm right next door.
Okay, all right, thank you. So we will have Alyssa speak on this one.
Thank you, Chair. The minor variance application before committee is seeking relief from section 7.31 to permit a minimum lot area per unit of 103 square meters, whereas 130 square meters is required. The applicant is also seeking relief from section 4.23(20)(a) to permit a parking ratio of 1.1 parking spaces per unit, whereas 1.25 parking spaces per unit is required. Lastly, the applicant is seeking relief from section 7.41(b) to permit parking spaces within the front yard, whereas no parking shall be permitted within the front or exterior yard on a lot. The application will facilitate the construction of a 3-story, 63-unit residential apartment building on the lot. The subject property is located on the south side of 2nd Street, east of the intersection at Adair Boulevard and 2nd Street in Strathroy. The property is approximately 1.6 acres in size with 53.5 meters of frontage. The subject property currently contains a single detached dwelling on municipal services. No comments were provided by agencies or the public at the time of preparing this report. I reviewed the application against the 4 tests of the Planning Act, and as indicated in the report, it is staff's opinion that this application does meet the 4 tests. As such, I'm recommending that minor variance application A8 2026 be approved, subject to the conditions provided in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Alyssa. Are there any comments from the owner or their representative on this matter?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect, wonderful. My name is Jamie Robertson, and thank you through your chair. I am the agent on the file. I work with Strick Waldenelli Moniz Limited in London, Ontario, SBM for short. And I do want to address just briefly, this was a site that was formerly rezoned to permit the 3-story apartment building. Through a redesign of the interior, it was found that more units could be accommodated within essentially the same original building footprint. However, that did then decrease the amount of square meters per unit, which is why we're back. The parking had originally been proposed very similar, but was not a part of the rezoning at that particular time. So we're just looking to bring that into conformity. And then with the parking spaces overall, a slight reduction, but with the change in units to provide some more studio and 1-bedroom units, where there generally are a few less required parking spaces, we still ensure that there's a 1 space per unit. So we just wanted to address those few items kind of individually. Should there be any other questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them as best of my ability. Thank you very much. We have reviewed the report, and we do agree with the recommendation and the conditions that have been put forth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robertson. Did you wish to speak on this matter? So I need you to go to the podium and state your name and your address, please, for the record.
Okay, my name name's Zach Webster. I live at 400 2nd Street, which is immediately next door. And I'm just kind of curious about the township's plans for future development, because I think this place is going to stick out like a sore thumb. We're wondering about if it's going to be a rental or they're selling these places. I have a tree line too that I think might be affected, so I'm just concerned about my tree line. Parking, garbage, lights, privacy, noise, construction, all have questions regarding. Yeah.
All right, thanks. Mr. Robertson, any comments on what was brought forward?
Yes, certainly. So again, through the rezoning process, most of those items would have been addressed at that particular time to permit the building as the 3-story apartment. Just in regards to that shared property line, I do know that there is a large landscape buffer to be proposed along that property line between the parking spaces and the adjacent unit. Again, to accommodate the existing tree line hedgerow that is there and provide additional space for alternative and future landscaping to be placed. Privacy screening and fencing can also certainly be options to help address any light pollution for vehicles towards that property. The building itself is located towards the other property line to increase the potential setback from the 400 lot. Again, to help increase space and provide that separation between the ultimate development and the existing single detached unit on that site. Additionally, the future plans for development in this area do include a subdivision to the lands to the west and to the south. And towards the Adair Boulevard intersection, it is planned in that development to be of higher density residential. So this would stick out immediately. That is correct. I do understand that comment. But this intersection is meant to house some more higher density and wouldn't be sticking out towards the future as it all develops. This is kind of the first step. So I do understand those comments, and we have worked through those in previous planning applications and do continue to keep that moving forward.
I'll let Jake DeRitter comment on this as well from the municipal perspective. I'll just comment that the town approved a secondary plan on that whole piece of land on that side of 2nd Street a number of years ago, and there are a number of different areas zoned differently for single family, medium density and high density. In this particular area, I believe is zoned high density, and so this is really the first development to take place on this land, and the council approved pretty much this development a couple of years ago, I guess. But I'll let Jake speak on and add anything else you'd like to add.
Yeah, I'll just add really quickly. There's this development, 392, and then the lands immediately behind it, which is what Jamie was referencing. Those are all draft approved subdivision. The first phase is 2 blocks sort of closer to 2nd Street, and they're both meant to be higher density, medium to higher density development. So I do agree with Jamie's comments that depending on the timing, this could stand out, but we do expect that subdivision as well to be constructed this year. So if both sort of get constructed this year, the timing will match up where it likely won't stand out.
Yeah, so certainly the long-term plan is for that whole area to be filled with residences in the future.
Okay, so sorry, as far as construction's going, like you guys have time frames, noise and all that kind of stuff, garbage.
I believe that would have all been, well, that'll be at the discretion of the developer when they wish to start to build, and certainly there have to be site plan approvals and the completion of all of that stuff. But again, I'll let Jake comment on that.
Yeah, so the next step for this site is to go through site plan approval, which is where we look at all the details of the site, the grading, the fencing, landscaping, stuff like that. Typical requirements for site plan in the agreement, we enter into an agreement with the developer. That is where we'll cover things like garbage, noise. If there's any sort of damage, they'll have to repair it to original condition. All that gets covered in a site plan agreement. As it progresses, if there's anything that comes up, just reach out to us. We'll do our best to address it.
And so who do I reach out to?
You can reach out to
You
us
directly?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a card or something?
I can get you one.
We'll deal with that later. We'll keep on track here. Comments from committee members? Deputy Mayor.
Yeah. Thanks, Chair. I remember when the secondary plan came to council, and there's going to be a lot of housing up there, and it's really going to be providing housing that we haven't seen before in Strathroy. Some refer to it as the missing middle. You know, Strathroy-Caradoc has historically been single-family homes. You have a few subdivisions that started out with duplexes back in the 80s and 90s. I've lived here all my life. I remember those being built, and they looked out of place at the time. But we have very few we have very few apartment buildings in Strathroy. It's very hard for somebody that can't afford a single-family home or even half of a duplex at $600,000 to find accommodations in this municipality. And we hear it all the time from our larger manufacturing and people doing industry in town. They can't get employees because the employees can't live in town. And of course, we don't have a transportation system like a major city would. So when council looked at this, and we looked at it under the eyes of the provincial policy statement that says we have to provide this type of housing, these various types of housing in a community, this is the area where a lot of this is going to go on, because it really is undeveloped land, and it's all going to develop, as opposed to putting a larger cluster of apartment buildings in an established neighborhood. This neighborhood is being built from the ground up now. So we're going to see more of this throughout the province, because the province tells us this is what we have to do. So I fully understand the changes. I've experienced them myself in my neighborhood. But the province has set down rules that are changing the landscape dramatically and very quickly. And that is all of the build more houses, which has now become provide more housing, that you hear the federal and provincial governments talking about weekly on the news. And we're just part of that larger puzzle. I do appreciate your comments though, sir. I very much do.
Councillor Brockman.
Yes, thank you. So I see in the two conditions that there's to be landscaping up and screen the parking spaces from the front yard. And I know there's a hedgerow of trees along the property line. Which property is the trees on? Are they on yours or the?
Well, it's pretty close. We've only lived there a couple months.
Right.
So
I guess what I would ask for is when site design is done, since there's going to be a lot of soil movement, if a berm could be built adjacent to the parking so that when people pull in and park, there's not headlights shining right into your
I'm
house.
also just wondering about where the garbage is going to be, because I don't want to really have to smell that when I'm filling by my pool. And and then just privacy pretty much, because it's pretty private right now, and now I'm going to have 100+ people looking in my pool. So I'm just kind of curious to see if they're going to be renters or home buyers, because it does, I don't mean to stereotype, but it does set the tone of, people in my neighborhood, and I have garages and stuff I'm worried about getting broke into, and
Okay, I appreciate your comments, but I think tonight we're just looking at we're just looking at the parking, and we're not getting into the building. The building itself has been approved. So,
no, for sure. And I'm zoned actually for future development too.
Okay.
So I totally get it and everything, but I'm just kind of curious.
All right, I appreciate your comments, and certainly you can make contact with Jake at another time, and I'm sure he's happy to share where the thing's at. Councillor Derbyshire.
Thank you. So on this, I was just gonna say, maybe as part of this here, the second condition, instead of just saying the street line, maybe we can say the street line in the neighbor's place down past the pool should have whatever significant screening parks, you know, whatever the same thing we're kind of looking at to keep the street line, you know, blocked from the street seeing it, I guess. Is that our point of what we're trying to do with the street line? Isn't that what,
Yeah.
like, can we just continue that down past his pool?
Through the chair, yeah, that's correct. That's the intent of the second condition there, is more so for the front, but if you'd like to amend that to also consider that east side yard.
I think that would just put his mind at ease then, that he knows down past his pool will have significant stuff so you can't see it. And again, with I was gonna say with the first condition, I do believe that as long as we're getting one parking spot per unit plus 4 or 6 visitor spots, whatever is needed, I think that's okay. When we drop below that, this is an area that does not have any kind of transit whatsoever other than a cab. So, you know, and it is a long foot walk from anywhere. So, you know, to think that they're gonna be walking somewhere until it gets developed and has other amenities around it, you're probably gonna need a ride. So I am okay with that, provided that we do have at least one parking space for every unit and that's enough visitor parking that would accommodate who's needed.
Councillor Pelton.
Yes, thank you. I can answer the question about the garbage, because the garbage is at the front of the building on the opposite side of the property from you.
Okay. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
If I may ask you a question. If we were to propose an amendment for landscaping between your property and the parking spaces beyond the pool, how far beyond the pool would you like? You're talking 20 meters?
Yeah, like my property's 400 feet long, you know, so.
And I see that your pool is halfway down roughly?
Yeah, roughly, yeah, roughly.
So if
And
it's,
honestly, I'm just looking like, you know, you got 100 people next door, I don't really want them on my property. I don't want them
Line
walking around.
stops just at his pool.
You know,
That's, I just thought it was fair.
just down, I was just gonna stipulate a 15
15 feet. Like where the original tree line is here, as long as we, I think, as long as we deal with the original tree line, I think you should be good. That's fair enough. We're not making the developer do the whole thing, but yet you're still getting your pool and whatever covered.
I'll make a motion to approve with the 2 conditions, plus a new 3rd condition, that landscaping be implemented to screen the parking spaces. Now I gotta get the wording in my mind here. Along the east side yard, from the street, from 2nd Street to a minimum 10 meters beyond the pool at the property. And would you, later, you could do it now, I just need a property, or sorry, a street address.
Mine's 400 2nd Street.
400?
Yeah. 400 2nd Street.
400 2nd Street. So we identify.
Okay. You good with that?
Yeah, thank you.
And Sasha, you're, we've got, okay, great. So the deputy mayor has made the motion, seconded by Councillor Peltman. Any other questions? All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you.
Are you opposed?
All right, thank you all involved in that, item 5.3. Next we move to 5.4. This is an application for consent. There are 2 applications, B1 and B2, 2026 at 305 Oak Avenue in Strathroy. The owners of the property are the Columbus Nonprofit Housing of Strathroy. Their agent is Zelenka Priamo. I believe that Harry Frosiers is online to speak on this item. So I wanted to start, before I turn it over to Alyssa, we're looking in this committee, Committee of Adjustment, it's, we see the items called it item for consent, and that's a severance. So we're really looking at the severance today. We're not involved in deciding, you know, what type of building goes on there or the height of the building or anything like that. We are just looking at severing a new lot off of the existing property. So I'd ask, I know a lot of you are here on this topic, so I'd ask that you keep that in mind if you're going to speak on the topic after the presentation. So I will turn it over to Alyssa.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of consent application B1 2026 is to sever one lot from a larger residential parcel to facilitate the construction of a 3-story, 32-unit residential building. The purpose of consent application B2 2026 is to establish easements to permit reciprocal parking and access arrangements, as well as revisions to an existing servicing easement on the subject lands. The subject property is located on the northeast side of Oak Avenue, northwest of Carroll Street West in Strathroy. The subject property as a whole is 1.23 hectares in size with 21 meters of frontage, containing a single-story, 30-unit residential building on full municipal services. The lands to be severed are 0.37 hectares in size with 3 feet of frontage along Oak Avenue. The lands currently contain landscaped areas and a portion of the parking area for the existing residential building. The lands to be retained are 0.86 hectares with 20.1 meters of frontage along Oak Avenue, containing the existing residential building and parking spaces. The severance is required for the corporation owning these lands to access funding for the project, although the lands are to effectively continue to function as one lot. Provided agency comments include the Manager of Growth and Development, noting existing servicing easements which are to be maintained and no development can occur on top of those easements. The Middlesex County Safety and Standards Officer providing 911 addressing comments. And while no formal comments were received prior to the development of the report, planning staff have now received 3 letters and a petition from the public with concerns about height of the proposed apartment building and privacy. The provincial planning statement, Middlesex County official plan, Strathroy-Caradoc official plan, and the zoning bylaw all permit and encourage intensification and infill with development within settlement areas. The proposal will be required to apply for a subsequent zoning bylaw amendment, which will include another public meeting at council to discuss any deviations from the zoning bylaw and the proposed building. The application before committee today is regarding the creation of the new lot. Staff are of the opinion that the severed lot and the proposed easements can accommodate a high-density residential use as proposed. And given the above, I am recommending approval of consent applications B1 and 2, 2026, subject to the conditions provided in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Alyssa. I believe Mr. Frosier's from too many names here. Zelenka Priamo is with us tonight, so I will have him speak if he wishes. And I believe there's representatives of the owners of the property as well. So here's possible.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. My name is Harry Frosiers. I'm with Zelenka Priamo Limited, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the Columbus Estate Nonprofit Housing Organization for the consent application at 305 Oak Avenue. I want to thank staff for their working with us throughout this process. There's been several meetings to get to this point, and we support their report and their recommendation to move forward with the conditional approval this evening. We have received the comments from the neighbors, and I just wanted to raise a few points just to help sort of everybody understand where we are in this process and what still lies ahead. As was noted in the staff presentation, this is really the first step of the process. We need to create this property for funding purposes, because otherwise this development can't proceed based on the funding model that currently exists for them. So this really is the first step in the process. We still have to go through a rezoning process, site plan approval in order to develop these lands for a 3-story apartment building. I did want to point out that the current zoning does permit a 3-story apartment building currently, There may be some site-specific requirements for things like setbacks, for parking, whatnot, but we're still not at that stage to finalize that information yet. That is still to come. So we do acknowledge, though, that the draft conditions that are in front of you today also say that we have to get rezoning before the consent is fully approved. So there is that sort of safeguard for the neighborhood to know that even if this gets approved tonight, we don't get that full severance until the rezoning is also approved as well. So there is, like I said, there is some work still ahead of us. A lot of the comments that we've seen are site plan related, I would say, in terms of fencing, lighting, those kind of things, landscaping. Those are things that we will deal with in more detail at a technical stage at site plan approval. The one thing I did want to note to the neighbors is that our client has agreed to host an open house so that we can invite the neighbors to the site to provide more technical details, drawings, and have them ask questions. We can provide comments, and that'll happen before we make any formal submissions for rezoning, moving to the next steps. I hope that gives some comfort that there's still a process involved to hear feedback. And as you said, Mr. Chair, this really is just for the consent application, the easements, to allow this next step to proceed. So based on that, we support the staff recommendation. Happy to answer any questions that anyone may have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. Next, we'll open it up. I believe that most of you in the audience are here on this matter. Does anyone wish to speak? And if you're going to speak, if a lot of you are going to speak, I'd ask that you keep it to a 2 or 3 minutes at the most, and that you give your name and your property if you wish to speak. So feel free to stand up in front of the mic and begin. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Geraldine Churchill, 351 Oak Avenue, and I represent 85 homeowners that are opposed to the reason that Columbus is asking for severance, to build a 3-story structure in the middle of our neighborhoods. We have 5 issues. Number 1, the profile and the character of the neighborhood will be changed forever. The proposed building will be visible from all angles. Single-family residential housing surrounds this property. Columbus Estates, at present, is single-story. The current profile in this area is low, it's not high. A 3-story building would be a monolith, centered in a sea of ground-level dwellings. It would be a focal point in the air above the quiet harmony of single-family homes. We know that it's zoned R3, but why do we need to change the profile in order to accommodate one lone property? Number 2, a 3-story, 32-unit building would result in a lack of privacy for the adjacent property owners on Oak Avenue, Heritage Court, and Moffett Lane. Backyard privacy is something that we all cherish. Some of us have spent much time and expense on patios, pools, landscaping, all to enhance our homes and make them a place that we can call our own. This is where memories happen, and where we finally have deserved time to enjoy it. With 2 additional floors hovering above us, we lose that privacy that we've worked so hard to attain. Number 3, there will definitely be a reduction in property value. A number of well-established Strathroy realtors have commented on the difference this 3-story complex will make in resale value on the neighboring homes. We stand to lose up to 25% in home equity, something we've taken years to build, all undermined by this plan. A lower level building would have much less impact, making significant difference in our financial loss. Number 4, the traffic, the congestion, the safety of the school children, all at the T intersection of Spence Drive and Oak Avenue. There's a crosswalk for school children there and a bus stop for students. There are 3 schools on our block, and kids come from neighborhoods farther away to take a safe back path to 2 of those schools. Parents drop their kids off at this T intersection just for this reason. The driveway to Columbus Estates is right there. 30 units currently use this. Inviting 32 more is nothing but a further hazard. 2 doors down, at 287 Oak, We understand Gold Leaf Properties are building single-story senior housing units. This will only add to the congestion. For heaven's sakes, save the children. Lower the proposed sum of people using this entrance to Columbus Estates. Number 5, trust in Columbus nonprofit housing has faltered. Current homeowners base the purchase of their homes in this area on the understanding that the subject severed lands would be developed at some point in the same manner, a suitable twin to the current Columbus Estates. That was a promise that they made to us in the 90s when they built. Yes, we've been there that long. But we are discouraged and saddened by the change in direction. In summary, we respectfully petition, ask the municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc Municipal Council, and Columbus Nonprofit Housing and their agent to take the following actions. Engage with the community, gather further input on what's best for all of us. Please consider restructuring the planning details to lower the height of the proposed building in order to blend with the profile of the neighborhood and avoid devaluation in homeowner property. Evaluate. How precious is your backyard privacy? And now you'll understand why we don't want to lose ours. Check realtor information and learn about financial loss that we homeowners will incur. Think about the enhanced traffic flow and congestion at the entrance to this property, especially with regard to the school kids. And lastly, honor your promise, Columbus, to build a low-profile building. In the short time that we had to put a petition together, we gathered 85 signatures from very concerned homeowners. If we had more time, we'd have more signatures. We are 3 separate neighborhoods adjacent to 3 sides of this property. Please, don't put a tower in the middle of us. We believe that a low-profile building would better suit the character of Columbus Estates and the surrounding homes. We, as homeowners, would then be able to retain our privacy and our property values, and we'd all keep our children safe. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I appreciate your comments. I believe the representative, the owner, stated that you were prepared to do an open house and meet with the neighborhood and discuss the property. So
we were encouraged to bring our comments to this meeting.
No, and I appreciate that. I'm just making everyone reminding everyone that the owner is willing to have an open house, and there is no set or nothing agreed to in terms of what to be built on the property. As I said, we're really just looking at severing the lot off the property tonight. That's what we're considering tonight. So. All right. Any other comments?
Can I speak?
Yes, please. State your name and your relationship to the property.
My name's Randy Noble. I live at 25 Heritage Court, and I back onto the subject property. I realize this is just the severance portion, but it may be our only chance to speak to the site plan. I don't know if there will be a public meeting for the site plan approval or not, so we'll touch on some of that stuff today, as we already have. I also have parking concerns. The new parking lot will back right into my fence. I'm concerned about the volume of parking, that there just isn't enough. And again, if we could reduce the size of the building and reduce the number of occupants and the number of cars, that would make a big difference. So if we could have perhaps a 1-floor or 2-story building. I would like to at least submit a request for directional lighting up the parking lot only and not the backyards. Privacy fencing, and again, I'm including these things now because I'm not sure that there will be public input into the site plan. Of course, I have privacy concerns like the rest of us do. As per my friend on 2nd Street, I also have a pool that I don't really want everybody watching me swim in. Again, a 2-story building or a single-floor building would make a big difference in that. I also have another concern that hasn't been raised that affects me a little more directly. There is a water main easement that runs between my place at 25 and my neighbor at 26. I had a fence put in, so I've had locates done. There were locates done, I assume, by the applicant. So there is a 6-foot water easement that runs between 25 and 26 Heritage, and it runs onto the subject property. I don't know where it goes. It's not in the site plan at all. I defer to the professionalism of our planner to know that there's flow rates sufficient for usage and fire protection of the building. I defer to her professionalism on that. But it does not show up on the site plan. And if that water main supplies the existing building, you're going to be building your new building on top of it. So I don't know where that easement goes when it leaves our property to the subject property, but it's not reflected in the site plan. And I just wanted to point that out. Because we're supposed to be, the use of existing infrastructure was a big part of the approval. It's promoting the provincial plan, the planner's recommendation that there's no construction on easements as well. And it may be covered under the B2 2026 that's about to follow. I don't know if the site plan drawing is different, but I don't see the easement that runs between our properties on your diagram.
There's a single line right there, and it comes all the way across here. That's the one. There's another one here that comes out this way. This one goes this way. Yeah. There's no sort of else. Okay. So it goes.
Maybe if you could, there was a sidebar conversation, actually, if you could
He may have actually answered my question.
Okay, but maybe for everybody's ears, if you could just say, maybe we could have the planner speak on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the comments. I just wanted to clarify with the neighbors that we have already reviewed where the existing easements run through the property, so we are obviously avoiding those. And the easement application that we've made addresses those as well because of the change in the lot pattern. I think we have to change those easements, but those easements are still in effect. We're not building over top of them, and that will be addressed through future site plan processes as well. And we'll, through the next process, we'll also receive information from staff as to capacity, any capacity issues and whatnot, and that'll all be determined through next steps.
I just a comment. I think I understand everyone's concerns, but I think everyone is prepared to spend time on this project and to speak with the neighbors. And again, we're looking at a severance tonight, not the building or approving heights or anything like that. So rest assured, everyone that's in the room, if the severance get approved tonight, there won't be holes being dug tomorrow to build a building. So just be assured of that. So, anyone else have any comments on this? I see someone. Again, state your name and your address, please.
My name is Heather Pass. I live at 295 Oak Avenue, and we have lived there for 4 to 6 years. So I have seen the neighborhood grow. And it was at first a little awkward to see Columbus Estates come in, what they were building, all that land was empty, but it has worked out fine. I have good neighbors. I can't complain. The old people are the nicest people that you could have for neighbors. What I'm worried about now is there is a sidewalk that is the walkway that goes back to the school, St. Vincent de Paul. Then there's a fence. Then there's the walkway for the seniors in their building. And they use it, they walk, whatever. All they have for an entrance in there is a laneway. And now we're going to add how many more people into that laneway. And I don't think it can be widened. It's not a road, it's just a laneway. The traffic already is busy. And at the end of my laneway is where the kids get on a bus. Everybody drops their kids off. Spence comes up and meets the front of my house. And the traffic on Oak Street is really, really busy. So I guess just between me getting surrounded on one side by another 3-story building for traffic. And then 2 doors down, we're putting in another big seniors complex apparently, and I don't know how many are going in there. It's really, really filling up small spaces in a real hurry. So we can see why we're a little worried about that. So thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else? I see a hand at the back there.
I'm Susan from 59 Moffett Lane.
Could you come to the microphone if you could, please? Just that way it picks up the sound and everybody can hear you. So. And I realize public speaking is not everyone's thing, but don't fret about it. You're amongst friends here that all have trouble with public speaking.
I'm Susan from 59 Moffett Lane. I've made a couple of extensive written submissions. I just wanted to clarify, will there be another public meeting, an opportunity for us to do this again, or is it just going to be a casual open house?
I certainly there'll be an open house. I will let the planners speak on how other things will happen.
In other words, will we have an opportunity to publicly air our concerns? As you know from my written submissions, we're not happy about this.
Yep. No, absolutely.
And I know we're not going to go through this here because I understand it's about the site plan, right? Okay. And severance. So
I will let others speak on.
Through the chair. Through the chair, yes, you're correct. This is just the first step, the consent application. It will be going to a rezoning, so a zoning bylaw amendment application as well. So that will be going to council, and it is a full public meeting, such as this one, that will address more of the considerations that are being discussed tonight concerning the building. That's where those comments would be most appropriate.
So certainly, I mean, at a session like that, there'll be a lot more details on plans, and certainly I hope the open house will give you plenty of opportunity to voice your concerns and ask questions and ask for any adjustments that would be made as well. So anyone else to speak? I see a hand at the back.
Hi, my name is Sherry Lamore. I live at 234 Oak Ave. I have a couple of comments. The first one being, I understand this gathering is about the easement and not the site plan. However, they do tie in. Without the easement, there won't be a site plan. One of my concerns is that if they were granted the easement, what the potential of them selling that property later on down the road would be, and then we have property in our neighborhood that doesn't have access to a road except through an easement. So we have property with no frontage. So that's one of my concerns. My other concern is the amount of traffic. And my concern about that goes even broader outside of just this property and dividing it and multiplying. It also goes, as the other lady mentioned, about what we understand is additional houses being built 2 properties down. Oak Ave is extremely, extremely busy. The gentleman from Heritage Court, I don't know if you realize Heritage Court is accessed off Oak Avenue. So we have that traffic for all the houses back on Heritage Court. We have the traffic from 2 schools that access their parents dropping them off to go through the cutway. We have the co-op, just around the corner, so all those kids are there. Oak Ave is a small, like a narrow street. Just this year, they actually changed it. It used to be able to park on both sides of the street, but that was a huge safety concern because then there was kids darting across the road with parked cars on both sides. So now that there's just parking on one side of the street, it seems to be a raceway. So that they just rip. And so when I think about adding another 30 families at this property and another who knows how many at the property that they've now just finished bulldozing all the trees down, 2 doors beside it, that's probably, I'm guessing, another 20 families. So that amount of traffic, I have huge concerns about that.
All right, appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes, my name is Jim Balma. I live at 9 Heritage Court, which is just kind of when you come into the court, so I'm not as directly impacted. My thing is that the time is to stop it is now, before we spend a lot more time on this. It's very creative to make a lot the way we did with 3 feet of frontage. I'm thinking, I don't know if anybody from this committee has actually been there and looked how this property actually looks.
I think all of the members are familiar with the property. So.
Are they familiar?
Yes.
Or from the map or from actually going there?
I'm actually going there, so.
Okay. So, I drove through there today and it looks good on the map, but when you actually go there, it's a little bit different. So anyway, most of the stuff I was going to say, or all of it, was pretty much addressed. So yeah, I just don't think this is something that, should be moved forward just because it's not for our neighborhood anyway. Right? So anyway, that's my statement.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. I'm Brenda Pearson. We reside at 91 Moffat Lane. And I just wish to say that we watched Mary Wright School be built. And we watched that process unfold. They are our rear neighbors. And a process begins regarding this proposal tonight. And with each successive step, we, the residents, lose the ability to really have the attention of council. And so that is my concern. That's what I raise. And I reiterate and thank all those who have spoken. And I agree with those statements.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else?
Hi. Lyle Hendricks. I'm the chair of the board at Columbus Estates. The only reason we got into this is because we are a non-for-profit. And the people that are living there now, they're geared to income, and they're so happy to have a place to live versus being out on the street. So the only reason we're doing this is because we thought maybe we could help 30 more people or families down the road. So, and it's not really families, it's retired people, mostly widows so that's the only reason we're doing it.
Thank you. Thank you for the comment.
Am I able to address his comment or
I don't want to debate here, so just the comment. So if there's a comment to be made about what we're dealing with tonight, that's it. The open house is for your discussions with one another. All right, then I will turn it to committee members for their comments. Councillor Pelpit.
Yes, thank you. And you're probably going to be a little disappointed in me because I'm going to talk about site plan issues because they're easier to affect the design at this point in time before things get kind of carved in stone. I did walk the site. I spent about an hour on Sunday morning talking with 2 gentlemen from the end of Moffat Lane and about an hour on the phone with Susan. So I'm going to first address the houses along Moffat Lane because as far as closeness, they're the ones that are most affected to the buildings being built. And the one thing that I was surprised about walking the property is the slope that's on that property. So my first question is, I noticed at the back of Columbus Estates, the current building, there's a fairly significant retaining wall. Will the profile and the slab of the building be at the same height as the current Columbus Estates? Because that technically means that the people in Moffat Lane are looking at a 2-story building and not a 3-story because that first story is under grade as far as their houses are concerned. So that's my first question. Because I think for the people on Moffat Lane, that makes a significant difference to them and puts their mind at ease if you can answer that question.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the question. At this stage, we haven't done the full analysis of grading, but that would be the intent, is to sort of match what's there now and not have different grades for the buildings. That creates other issues with stormwater manage and whatnot. So I think I can't confirm 100%, but that is something that I believe is being considered to make sure that grade is consistent along the back.
All right, thank you. So again, still dealing with the Moffett Lane side. In terms of lighting, typically security lighting would be mounted on the building and pointed outward. But if you're building a retaining wall, the potential to put electricity behind there and have the lights on the retaining wall shining towards the building would mean that the people on Moffett Lane don't have the lights staring right into their backyard. So I just want to put that in your mind for thought later. The people on Moffett Lane did request that a privacy fence be installed on top of whatever wall is there. Want to deal with Heritage Court now. My first thought was I was thinking that since you're moving soil, that a berm could be built up against there, but unfortunately all the water drains from Heritage Court down through that property, so that would be an impossibility. So in speaking with the property owners there, they were hoping for some planting of cedars or something that could grow and cover the sight lines from the third story down, so that people aren't staring at their backyards and pools. And while I did not speak to anybody on Oak Street, I would assume that the same be granted towards them, because and unfortunately we couldn't see a drawing of the building, but it appeared just from the outline that any balconies would be facing towards Heritage Court and the current Columbus Estates, not at the ends. So the people on Oak Street directly behind wouldn't have anybody staring in, but a little further down would have somebody on their balcony staring into the backyard. So if trees or something could be, a 6-foot fence doesn't really cut it when you're looking at a third story down. So trees, I think, would be preferable. I did have concern about the easement for the water line coming in. And so not 100% sure, but maybe if someone could answer the question, if for some reason that water line had to be enlarged, because I'm assuming that's the water line that's supplying the Columbus Estates building, that currently goes under the driveway of your place. So would that be restored to the state that it's in now, should that water line have to be replaced? That's my second question.
I can answer that. If there's any sort of upgrades to the existing services, it would always be restored to existing condition or better. We aren't anticipating the need for any upgrades there, but should there be any, for sure it would be restored.
And my last comment would be about the traffic. So one of my co-workers lives at the corner of Heritage Court and Oak Street, and in having a fairly lengthy conversation with her, one thing that she was surprised is when Saxonville opened up, is the increase in volume of traffic that came from that neighborhood, which directly affected her because they come to the T intersection and turn towards Carroll Street to go to Walmart or Canadian Tire. And she did also talk about the speed and how that increased when the parking went to one side. So I'm going to be bringing forward at the next council meeting to ask the traffic committee to put a three-way stop at that intersection, because I think that will make it a lot safer. First, it stops the traffic from driving from one end all the way to the other end. As far as the crossing guard is concerned, all the cars got to stop. I will say I lived at a four-way stop for many years. It is a false sense of security that people will stop at a four-way stop, which sometimes makes it more dangerous. So I'll still be recommending it because I think it makes sense, but that is something that worries me. And I'll also be asking the traffic committee to consider speed humps like we put in on the north end to try and slow the traffic down. It doesn't slow the pickups down, but it does slow the cars down. So that's one thing that I'll be asking for. Also to think about, because both of these proposals, and I know we're not talking about the other one 2 doors down, but working with seniors every day as I do, seniors have a very different traffic pattern than people who are working. And for the most part, the seniors don't go out until after the kids have gone to school and have probably come back before they're let out. Maybe not because it's 2:30ish, but certainly it's different than the commuting traffic at work times. So that is something to think about when you're talking about the traffic. But I have heard loud and clear that the traffic that already exists there is too fast, and that intersection has gotten a lot busier. So those would be the things that I'll be asking to bring forward.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments? Councillor Dubuchon.
Thank you. So I'm just going to ask for just a bit of clarification so that I know exactly what I'm dealing with, just because there is an awful lot of stuff going around. So we're looking for a severance for the purpose of them obtaining funding. That is the purpose, because really and truly, if I read this correctly, they can put whatever building on there they want right now. So when I look at it with a 3-foot easement for this, we're not creating a driveway or anything to access this building back there. So what exactly, where does this severance even fall in with us allowing it? Being that it's simply for funding, not for another thing here. Is it,
I have a question further to that, if I may. Is this the first 3-foot frontage in the municipality?
I'm sorry, we're in a different...
So I'm not trying to be stubborn here. I just don't understand exactly why we are granting this severance if it isn't, you know, for them to kind of gain access to go along and make sure that we're not going through the parking lot of the old place, or that at some point this could become a separate parcel of dirt that could be sold or used for a different thing, sold to another place. If it simply is for funding, where does that fall into part of a reason to sever lands?
Melissa or Jake, comment on that, please.
Through the chair, the consent application permitted to apply to create a new parcel of land, and just to talk about that kind of 3-meter frontage, that's to ensure that the land itself has legal access onto the road, so that's why that's there. But it's permitted to create a lot that has an adequate size for whatever use it's intended to be for.
Which I do understand the lot itself has an adequate use, but a 3-foot wide, I don't even know if that qualifies for a sidewalk. I think accessible sidewalks now have to be bigger than 3 feet. So you're not actually, it would not have access other than a footpath, which, and I'm not, to me, if you already have this and it's about funding, I would put your whole property up and go with the grant that way. I think that we're creating a, I don't know. Anyways, that's my statement there. I don't know how it actually qualifies for a severance. I realize you say with the frontage of 3 feet, but how does that gain access to that if that isn't the standard width of sidewalk or whatever we use, whatever we need to access this place that was now going to house 30 people? Like, say the other place sold, what would we do then? And I'm not saying it is, but we should be looking at it from the standpoint of, if it is severed and they sell it, you can't access it with 3 feet.
Comments?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. And those are good comments, but what's happening here is that the Columbus Estates will own both properties because the funding is required. They have to be a separate entity to get funding for this new building. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here if they could get funding otherwise. The 3-meter frontage, we could make it wider, but it just creates a lot of complications with the current easement. There's parking, there's other obstructions. Instead of that, though, we are asking for an easement to allow for shared access onto the property in perpetuity through a registered easement. So if the property were to exchange hands, Untitled would be the fact that that landowner who owns that new parcel has legal access to their property. So that will all be covered through easement agreements, reciprocal operating agreements, that will all be done as part of this process. Yes, we could have made it wider, it just was very complicated to do that based on the existing conditions of the site. But yes, they would have full access through the driveways, through sidewalks, through these easements that are being registered on title. So I hope that clears that up. If there's any questions, I can certainly try to answer better.
Other comments, questions? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. When it comes to consents, and if you've listened to council, you've probably heard me speak about this a bit lately. These are highly legislated from the provincial government. So I understand why you want the consent, why you want the severance, and there's financial reasons behind it to get the grant, and I fully understand that. When we're sitting here, to be all honest with you, we really don't have a decision to make. It's legislated. And it starts with the provincial planning statement put down by the provincial government. And they talk about it in the document. It seems everybody's read the document. If you haven't, please go back and read it. It talks about the PPS. It's relatively new. It used to be a provincial policy statement. They changed it to a planning statement. This is all about building more houses, now building more housing. So the difference between a house, most of us own single family homes, let's say, we'll just make that assumption, and then housing, now I can take my house and split it into 4 units, and I'm R1. And if you're R1, you can do the same thing. 3 by right, and because we're involved with the program with the government, you can now put 4 units in your house, on your property. Every R1 house has that right to do it. Don't have to come here and ask us. Just have to follow the building code. That's the quick and dirty of it. Things are changing extremely quickly. So the planning statement set out by the province says we must do intensification. And one of the ladies said, because I jotted it down, filling of small spaces in a hurry. And that's exactly what the province is forcing us to do. Taking all of these previously landlocked areas and getting access to them and putting houses on it, because the infrastructure is already in a municipality like Strathroy-Caradoc, Strathroy and Mount Bridges to be specific. That's the way they're going to build more houses faster to get people off the streets. That's their plan. I don't know if it's going to work, but that's their plan. Then the county official plan has to follow that plan. And then the Strathroy-Caradoc official plan has to follow the county plan, which has to follow the provincial planning statement. It talks about in these plans that when a committee of adjustment or a council is making a decision, we must follow the legislation and we have to follow these plans that are handed down to us. I just told you 3 of them. And that's why I say you come to this forum where it seems like we have a decision to make, but I'll be honest, sitting here, I don't think I have any decision to make. I think the legislation is clear. It tells me to follow the provincial planning statement. And I think you know where I'm getting at, where I feel I have to make a decision that the severance is allowed, and I can't stand in the way. And that's when people say, well, they go to the OLT, and the OLT, Ontario Land Tribunal, used to be OMB for us. If you have gray hair like me, we remember it as OMB. The appeal process, it's not an appeal process at all. They totally disregard everything we do. They start from scratch and they follow exactly what it is I explained to you, and it's a check mark in a box. You get check marks in the 7 boxes in front of you, and you get to go ahead. And that's why OLT overturns 97% of the cases that come in front of them. Because bodies like ours, councils, etc., are trying to do things for the community because we think it's the right thing to do, and we're not following the legislation exactly, and OLT flips it on us. That's my feeling. I'm making a statement to you, but I really want you to understand when you're here the process that you're involved with. This is a severance application. And quite honestly, I think it's perfectly allowed. Site plan and everything else will come down the road later on, but the decisions a lot of times are strictly legislative. That's my feeling. Members around the board may feel completely different, but I believe that's where we are today.
Councillor Puck, and I'm going to try to move things along here. So,
yes, thank you, Chair. The unfortunate reality is Mike is correct in that we're being told what to do. The unfortunate part of the rule change is that it's being made from Toronto, which for policies that really work better in a city. You know, in a place where you have a transit system, for instance, reducing the number of parking spots isn't so much of an issue because you have a bigger chance that less people will have cars. We do not have a transit system, and the reality is if you live on Oak Street, you need a car. It's a long ways to walk to even Giant Tiger to get a few bits of groceries. In saying that, though, you know, I think there's ways we can affect the decision to make the impact on the residents less, and that's where my focus is, because Mike is correct. We don't have too much choice, and in fact, the province has taken away all your rights to appeal it at the OLT. None of you can appeal it. So you technically have no say. And that was not a Strathroy-Caradoc doing. It is everybody across the province of Ontario has lost the right to appeal something that happens in their neighborhood. And that is a crying shame. We spent a lot of money and a lot of time to make an official plan where neighborhoods could be neighborhoods. And right after finishing that process, the province changed the rules and it all went out the window. And probably, maybe if you can remind, a couple $100,000 later of fees that were thrown out the window from WSP doing the official plan. So I got two questions that could maybe help assuage the fears of the people that are living there. Is it the intention of the Knights of Columbus to maintain the same criteria for their tenants? That's one question.
I mean, to keep it going the way it is?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. So you're not going to have young families or 20-year-olds who might be blaring their music on the
No, it's all for senior.
Okay. Might have to put up with some polka music then. The other thing is, I know that the severance is being used for funding, but when the terms of the funding have been met, is the possibility there to re-merge the properties?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's my understanding, no, it has to remain that way in order, because there's only initial funding, but there's still continued payments and whatnot to be made. So I believe, and we can look into this further, but my understanding is it has to stay that way.
I know with my involvement with Caradoc Housing that, you know, we have a 25 or 30-year contract, but after that, because those contracts will involve the Knights of Columbus and the government, after that funding is done, does the possibility exist to merge the titles of two properties? Because that will be the point in time where it could be sold and split into two pieces of property. So that's why I'm asking.
But we can certainly look into that more. I don't have the answer for you now, but my assumption is that it has to stay in place like that to get the funding.
25 years is a long time. Things can change. A lot of us won't be in this room. Anyway, Councillor Derbyshire. And then we're gonna do something here, so we're gonna vote.
Thank you. So that does take me back to, we are here to deal with a severance. So yeah, the provincial policy plan says do this, do that, do everything else. If we were to sever lands, we would make them have their own servicing, right? So each land would have to, the new parcel and the old parcel would have to have water and a sewer connection for both parcels, correct? I guess that's a question. Is that something we ask for in the severance?
Through the chair, typically, but I would say it's also situational. we don't always do that. It depends on the built form too as well, right? In this case, they have a water main that runs right through the property, right? So it makes it a bit easier to install a separate service. So I mean, we can require them to install a separate service. That shouldn't be a problem. The uniqueness here is that the water main happens to run through the property.
And sewer?
Both.
They both run in the same direction?
Yeah.
Okay, so then my next question would be the access. Is 3 feet an adequate access to sever a lot?
The 3 feet alone would not be, but in combination with the easements that are being proposed, the primary access is through the easements. So it's an access and maintenance easement. Over the easement is in favor of the new lot over the existing lot. So the new lot will have access over the existing entrance through the easement. The easement is part of the consent. So the primary access is through the easement. The 3 feet is just to give it legal frontage as far as dealing with zoning and stuff.
So I just want to make crystal clear in doing this, we're now setting precedent, right? With this, what we're doing here. And I know it's for a good cause. I'm not against the cause, but you are setting precedent.
Comment, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. And when we initially approached staff with this, we didn't want to have the 3-foot wide access. We just wanted this to be a standalone lot with easements in place. But staff reminded us in the official plan, it says in any lot must have legal frontage. It doesn't say what the minimum is, it just says it has to have legal frontage. So as Mr. DeRitter said, I mean, it's not uncommon to see these situations, and I can bring the examples of shopping centers where you may have one shopping center block and over time, tenants buy their portion of the property, but don't have the access right there, so they build in these easements to have shared access, parking, whatnot. Similar to what's happening here. And the fact that it's being registered on title ensures that whoever owns those lands that have the limited access do have the ability to access that property legally and forever and a day. So that's why we're doing it this fashion, to make sure that all the mechanisms are in place to ensure that anyone owning or operating that property is assured they have legal access to that property through their neighboring property, let's call it.
Okay. All right, it's at the time, we're at the time where we're going to deal with this, so there is a recommendation, there are two consent motions for this one. B1, is it B1? B1 and B2, so we'll take for B1, so consent B1, so a recommendation to approve. Is someone willing to make that motion? The deputy mayor, second.
With the conditions.
With all of the conditions, there are, yes, that's right, there are 10 conditions to the first, and that includes things like the easements and all that kind of stuff. A seconder. I will, a seconder, member Kumar. All in favor? Opposed?
Quick comment,
Yep.
if may. I vote in favor for the legality of that. I don't really think we have any legal reason to turn it down. Morally, I kind of agree with these people, but that's not what's in question today, so.
All right, thank you. So the next is we need for the second B2 2026, and there are 7 conditions associated with that. Severance, so would someone make the motion to approve that? The deputy mayor, seconder. Member Kumar, all in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. So thank you. The consents are approved. I appreciate everyone's participation tonight. As was stated, this is only the beginning of the process. I think you've got an applicant that is very committed to working with the neighborhood in moving the project forward. And so I encourage you to attend those open houses and public meetings when various site plans and zoning reapplications and all of those things take place. So again, I appreciate the civility tonight, and I appreciate all of your comments. And we've got one more item to deal with, but I'm going to let those that want to go home get out of here, and then we'll move on to the last application. So thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, that's what Valerie said. But it was very interesting. I lived there.
Okay, folks, if there's more conversations to be had, I'd ask that they take place outside the chamber here while we carry on with the last application. All right, our last application for the night is 5.5, a application for consent, B5 2026 at 9334 Glendon Drive. The owner of the property, Anita Hassan, I think Anita is here, yes, and the agent, Sandy Dobbin, I hope I'm pronouncing that properly. Yep. All right. So I will turn it over to Alyssa to speak on this matter.
Thank you, Chair. This application before committee is seeking permission to convey a portion of land from 9334 Glendon Drive to be merged with the adjacent lands to the east, legally known as part of Lot 24, Concession 2, on Part 1 of Reference Plan 33R 16481. The purpose of the lot addition is to sever and consolidate the agricultural land with the adjacent parcel and transfer the retained lot to a family member. The subject property is located on the northwest side of Glendon Drive, northeast of the Highway 402 access. The property as a whole is approximately 28 hectares in size with 301 meters of frontage, containing an existing single detached dwelling on private services and 3 accessory structures, being a shed, a shop, and a bunkie. The lands to be conveyed are approximately 15.6 hectares in size, with 186 meters of frontage, containing lands for agricultural production and woodland areas and an existing accessory structure. The resulting lands to be retained are approximately 4.4 hectares in size, with 113 meters of frontage along Glendon Drive, containing the existing dwelling and 2 accessory structures. The neighboring property with the lot addition would result in being approximately 32.3 hectares in size with 240 meters of frontage. No comments were provided by the public prior to the development of this report. Provided agency comments include the Middlesex County Engineer providing county road dedication requirements, the Middlesex County Safety and Standards Officer providing 911 addressing comments, and the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority noting that they have no objections to this application. As noted in the report, this application does not satisfy the requirements of the Planning Act, is not consistent with the provincial planning statement, does not conform to the official plans of both Middlesex County and the municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc, and does not represent sound land use planning. Staff do not consider this to be a minor boundary adjustment and believe that this is not the appropriate application route for this proposal. Staff are concerned in regard to the precedent this application may set to essentially create residential lots in the agricultural area without the same restrictions and policies that would apply to a surplus farm dwelling severance. Given the above and within my report, I am recommending denial of consent application B5 2026. Thank you.
Thank you, Alyssa. Do the applicants wish to speak to this matter?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Thank you very much for allowing me to come and speak to you tonight on this matter. I'm essentially here, I don't live in this area anymore. I did back a number of years ago. I live up in the Georgian Bay area, and I essentially 2 days ago retired as a professional senior planner and senior policy advisor from the Ministry of Natural Resources. I'm here to help or assist Ms. Hazen, and seeking this consent for severance in order to effectively do things to assist her family, to do what would work best for her family. But in saying that, I believe that the proposal poses no negative consequences or impacts and does not offend the intent of the PPS or the Middlesex or Strathroy-Caradoc official plans to protect agriculture, and in fact benefits agricultural protections on this lot by consolidating the agricultural lands on one lot. The story here is the two lots are concurrently work together as farmland. But if the lots are separated now, after transfer of the one lot to her son, the other lot is to be sold at some point in time, then the agricultural viability of these agricultural lands would be diminished significantly. And I'll get into that a bit more. I appreciate and respect the position that Ms. Solo has taken. However, I believe that her conclusions represent a strict and rigid interpretation of the policies. And I submit that they're not entirely black and white, these policies, and that the conclusions do not consider the intent of the policies in making a determination on conformity. So, for example, the provincial planning statement, or the PPS, stipulates that a lot adjustment in a prime agricultural area may be permitted for legal and technical reasons. I note that the Middlesex official plan uses the same language. Ms. Soldo has suggested that this is the reason for this severance that we're requesting is not for legal or technical reasons, but is instead a workaround of existing policies to achieve a surplus farm dwelling severance. I do not believe this to be true, and in fact, the conversations have been had about a surplus dwelling application. The yellow section of the property, as you can see on the map, is the area that the residence is in. And considering the residence is some 25 years old, back when we didn't really have some of these policies to protect agriculture, the house was built somewhat further inland on the property, and that section in yellow is not in tillable land right now. It is part of the lands that are landscaped as part of the dwelling. In addition, this does not create a new lot as a surplus dwelling application would do. This is looking at only maintaining the two lots that she currently has. And I'll put in the map that the red portion of the lot is the remainder of the lot that is part of the house right now, and that the lot to the east, which is not actually shown on this one, up to the edge, is the lot that we're seeking to add those lands to. So the PPS defines legal and technical reasons to include minor boundary adjustments, not resulting in a new lot. And this goes back to the permitted use in the PPS that says, and your official plan, that says a lot adjustment may be permitted for legal and technical reasons. Ms. Silva has suggested that the proposal is not a minor or modest adjustment. And I can see your point entirely. The question is, what is minor and what is modest? So the PPS uses the term minor lot or minor boundary adjustment, and your Strathroy-Caradoc official plan refers to a relatively modest one. On the words alone, I agree that this is more than what the plans would request or suggest. However, as these terms are not defined, the policy is not black and white. Should we consider the number of acres that is being transferred? Maybe. Should we consider the proportion of the lot being conveyed? Likely. But what is that permitted amount? If the policy had stated a maximum number of acres or a percentage, then a firm decision can be made as to whether it meets the plan or it does not meet the plan. But I believe the policy is not clear and that you need to determine this on a case-by-case basis. I believe it was left intentionally flexible to give the planning authority, which is you, final say in the application. As a policy advisor in a case like this, and I held a planning team for many years in the Ministry of Natural Resources, I would direct my planning team to consider the intent of the policy and the level of risk that the proposal makes. What is it a minor or modest in the context of the anticipated effects on agriculture, the risk of approving the severance? The intent of the PPS and your official plan is to protect agricultural lands for the long-term use for agriculture. This proposal does nothing to offend this intent. It creates no new impacts to agriculture. It does not create a new lot. It does not change minimum distance separation calculations, therefore would have no other impacts on new proposals for farmers for buildings for livestock purposes, because the dwelling already exists on this lot. Essentially, I don't see that there are impacts to agriculture in any way. Thus, the question is whether the proposed lot addition is reasonable in the context and if it upholds the intent to protect agriculture, and I submit to you that it does. And in fact, it has a benefit of increasing agricultural viability for the agricultural lands through the consolidation. On another issue, as our son will be taking over the western lot, and the other lot, if the other lot happens to be sold, it is very likely that the viability of these two lots combined, now separate, will diminish significantly. If the eastern lots are sold to somebody who is not going to allow agricultural through it would be very likely that it would be impossible to attract a tenant farmer on the retained or the entire lot to the west. And even if they do, the likelihood of having the income capacity from farmland on the rent is not likely to be sufficient to continue the qualifications required to seek tax reduction benefits through AgriCorp. Ms. Soldo has also suggested that the legal or technical reasons for a lot adjustment should not change the use of the retained lot. I found that interesting as I don't see anything in the PPS that includes language that addresses a change of use in the retained lot in this context. It does speak to not creating a new lot or a new agricultural or conflicting use. In other words, you can't have impacts on agriculture. Neither of these are proposed. And what does it mean to change the use of the lot? I submit to you that the lot is currently used for two separate uses right now, agriculture and residential use. The lot is not 100% agricultural. We heard a minute ago about the new provincial planning statement, which came out in 2024. And for the first time, they put a bit more information related to what it takes for a dwelling on agricultural lands to be considered an agricultural use. And that is that the principal dwelling is associated with the agricultural operation. Advice I've seen from OMAFRA now in this situation is that essentially what that means is the farmer needs to be living in the dwelling. That is not the case here. Ms. Hassan rents these lands out to a tenant farmer and who is currently farming the consolidated agricultural lands of the two lots. If ownership were to change, that may not continue. In fact, it's entirely possible that agriculture will cease on these properties. Allowing the consolidation of farmland makes it much more likely that these lands will continue to be farmed into the future. So essentially, residential use here is now arguably a legal non-conforming use, as are the dwellings in the area that you see on the map along Glendon Drive there. These are all created in the past, no different than the building envelope that Ms. Hassan holds on her property that was created before most of these policies were put in place. As the PPS and the official plans are not intended to restrict existing uses or non-conforming legal uses, I would submit that the lots already have two uses already, and that the one will continue on this lot, the residential use, and that the farmland use, the agriculture, will be transferred to the side of the lot to the east. The Middlesex official plan allows for boundary adjustments as long as non-viable farm parcels are created. Ms. Soldo has concluded that the results will be a non-viable farm parcel of 4.4 hectares. I don't really agree with that perspective, as that none of the arable lands will be retained on that lot. Only the lands that have been already transferred towards landscaping as part of the dwelling on the property. But in addition, the conclusion also ignores my point from above, in that it is assumed that a lot has only one use. In fact, as I mentioned, the lot has two discrete uses already. We're not suggesting a new non-permitted use. In fact, the proposal creates a more viable farm parcel, as I've mentioned, on the vacant easterly parcel. So is it a change in use, or is it a reorganization of the uses? I put that to you. Lastly, Ms. Soldo has suggested that approving the proposal will set a precedent, essentially a workaround for applicants to essentially sever off a dwelling from existing farm parcels that do not meet the criteria for a surplus farm dwelling, and that the workaround does not prohibit new dwellings on the agricultural land or restrict access on the severed lots. This is not the same as a surplus dwelling application. We are not creating a new lot, meaning that there should be no restriction on the easterly lot and that it's not warranted because that lot is already a viable agricultural lot that could allow for the construction of a primary farm dwelling. I would also note that the county official plan requires that in allowing a lot adjustment, that the lands being conveyed at the time must be registered in the same name and title as the lands to which they are being added. That would be mostly unlikely in the case where someone's trying to get a workaround as suggested. So I do not believe this will create precedent. In conclusion, Ms. Hazen is looking to consolidate farmland and to transfer the retained lot to her son. If it's not permitted, as I mentioned, and the east lot is sold, the viability of her son's lot is significantly reduced when not farmed with the eastern lot. And as I mentioned, I believe it may reduce the viability of both lots. We may see that the lot to the east is actually purchased for a state residential dwelling, which is not really supposed to be supported in prime agricultural areas, but I understand the difficulty in denying a building permit when someone claims that they will farm the land and eventually don't.
All right, Mr. Dobbin, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? I see another member in the gallery. Any other comments?
No, I'm a.
You don't have to speak if you don't want to. I'm just giving you the opportunity.
No, sorry, I'm a director with the Knights of Columbus.
Oh, okay, all right, okay. Sorry, that's fine. Committee members, comments, questions, thoughts. Councillor Pelkman.
Yes, thank you. I was kind of under the same vein of thought that this actually does protect the farmland better. But I did have a question though. Is there a fear that with this proposal that a new house could be built on the farm parcel that's the enlarged farm parcel? And if that's the fear, could we just make that one of the conditions that a house not be built on that parcel?
Through the chair, since this application isn't a surplus farm dwelling services, it isn't held up to the same policies that would result from a surplus farm dwelling severance, where there are those such as not being able to build a home on the farm parcel and ensuring that the other lot remains residential only and no agricultural is to happen there. So that's the reasoning for that. And if you'd like to include that in the conditions, I assume you could, but there's no policy from our end that enforces that the same way as if this application went through the route of a surplus farm dwelling severance.
Yeah.
Can I speak to that?
No. Councillor Derbyshire.
Thanks. I understand where we're going with this. I do believe it is probably the best use of the land when you actually think about it from the standard of retaining the agricultural portion behind this residence. And I do respect what Councillor Pelkman's saying, other than if we did draw the line backwards, it's supposed to be that lot is already there and has the right to build. Like they could build a house today down on that corner, and then you would just come in and do a farm severance and try to sever this house off. I think what they're trying to do here is put this agricultural portion with this agricultural portion and get this house severed off. There's a good chance she builds a house tomorrow, but there's a good chance she could build that tomorrow without this even happening. That's the reality of what we're dealing with. I guess what it comes down to is, do we believe that this bush and these trees and this landscaping is prime agricultural land that should be protected, is essentially what we're being told, right? As opposed to allowing this to happen.
Through the chair, yeah, the perspective of this is it is technically considered prime agricultural land, even including the lands around the residential piece, and that's where the policy comes in and doesn't permit that.
So again, it just depends if how you want to look at it. I mean, if somebody wants to bulldoze the trees and take out that and the pond out front and their landscaping, then yes, I guess you do have prime agricultural land. But again, we see this lots of times where we, are talking about prime agricultural land, and again, nobody's ever going to farm this. That 4.4 hectares, that's not going back to farmland if it ever was. It is what it is. To me, I think this does do more to protect this whole piece as a whole. They're not going to be able to sever that back off. And even if they did build a house and sever another house off of that, then that farm would actually become A2 or 3, whatever that is, so that you cannot build another house on it. So there, yep, we might have another lot at the front of this at some point down the road, but in my honest opinion, I realize why it's denied, but I think I do agree with what what Sandy has said all the way along with this whole process. I've often said, if all we are here to do is the policies are here and this is and that's what we follow, then why are we here? Because I don't think then we're using discretion. So there's no sense any of us being here. This is where it's up to our interpretation of how you see this as prime agricultural land or not. So I don't. I think this is a good use of what we're doing.
I think the question on our purpose is being asked, but we're not here to, we won't decide that tonight. Deputy Mayor, did you have a comment you wanted to make?
Yeah, my comments keep changing, but I do have one question. Without flipping all the way back to the beginning, I have the picture up in front of me. This whole area is zoned prime agricultural. So it is prime agricultural lands, right? So sometimes we get caught in the conversation that we don't think it's prime agricultural because it's not farmable, but that's not the definition that they're using when they talk about prime agricultural land. They're looking at their map in Toronto or the county or Strathroy-Caradoc's map and saying, this big circle here, all of that's prime agricultural land, even though half of it is terrible for growing crops, right? That's where that term comes from. Yes, I see, but you're nodding your head. We need a yes or a no so that it can be recorded.
To the chair, yeah, they designate all of this whole area as prime agricultural land. It's just important to know as well as for the definition of agricultural, it doesn't just include being able to farm crop land. It also includes. Yeah.
So when they designated it, so my point is, when once it's regular, or once it's on a map accepted by the province and the county that it's prime agricultural land, and we read the PPS or the county plan or our plan, and we're talking about prime agricultural land, it's not open for discussion anymore. It's prime agricultural land, whether or not we think it's farmable. Because I fully understand where Bo's coming from with all of his experience saying it'll never be farmed, and we've had this at other segments before, right? Where it's not a viable farm, but it appears on this mapping system under the term of prime agricultural land. As soon as it does, it applies to the policy. That's the conundrum we end up in.
Councillor.
I think this is a case where common sense needs to overturn the theoretical. To me, this proposal makes complete common sense. It's land that's never going to be farmed. It protects the chunk behind it that could potentially end up being landlocked and left to do nothing. So, and when I asked the question about the house, I'm not in favor of putting a restriction of not building a house. I was just asking the question. I would rather leave it wide open.
So does, I guess commented, does this set a precedent moving forward if we move ahead with if the application was approved further down the line? So.
Through the chair, in terms of what a linear boundary adjustment application looks like, yes, this is concerning policy. This isn't technically what would be approved as a minor boundary adjustment, so it would be setting a precedent just based on the situation here.
I just want to ask one question though. So if tomorrow they go and build a house on the retained parcel, house is built, they walk in and say, fine, we're going for a surplus farm dwelling. My son is now going to go for a surplus farm dwelling because he's bought the whole piece from mom, or the vice versa, however that works. Are you going to say yes to the surplus farm dwelling of the house, even though it's that far back and we allowed it to be built that way? So, like when you say, are we skirting around them building the house? They can still build a house, they can do this. What we've done is just added 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 years to the process. If he can sever off that house and surplus farm dwelling it. Like, I think when we look at situations, and again, I'm not trying to debate why committee's here, but I think these are situations that we need to look at and why they sit here. If not, then you already have a policy. Why am I here? What I'm saying is, my question is, if they build a house, can they sever that other house off as a surplus farm dwelling?
Through the chair, just to clarify, is that for the east lot that's separate from this one that you're saying to build the house on?
Yes. So if he built a house, I think it's the son that owns the east lot, somebody owns it, or whoever owns what. If it's separate, they deed it separate, he builds a house, buys mom out, the house is 25, 30 years old, can he sever that off?
Through the chair, if it is built on the land that's vacant with no home on it right now, they could build the home. They'd have to wait the 10 years for the current policies for surplus farm dwelling severance and have to meet all the other requirements. And if they meet all the requirements, then yes, they would be able to sever it off if it met all the policies.
Councillor Pelkman, and then we're gonna.
Yeah, I guess I would question the setting of precedent, because we're really doing two things here. We're merging adjacent farm properties with severing off a house, and the merging of the two farm properties is, to me, which you'd be hard pressed to find a lot of situations like that would set the precedent. And you're actually creating a larger farmable lot than what currently exists in either of those properties. So that's why, to me, like the intent of the PPS is to protect the farm properties. To me, in the long term, we're protecting the farm properties because we're protecting that piece at the back from ever being severed off, because you got two property owners that can't agree to access to the back. So by making it this one piece of property, you're forever removing that potential from happening.
Okay, so we have two choices here. We can, the recommendation is to deny the consent, or we can, I would entertain a motion to defer with the understanding that it would be considered for approval at a subsequent meeting, but the conditions would need to be worked out between the parties for such a consent. So what's the pleasure of the committee? Deputy Mayor.
I'll make a motion to deny.
Seconder? I don't see a seconder, so that motion is defeated. So that leaves the motion to defer. Councillor Derbyshire and Councillor Pelkman to second. Any questions on that? All in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried to defer. Thank you. Okay, so can we defer that? So we need to set a date for that. The May 7th meeting, is that possible? Or the June 4th meeting?
The 7th should be fine. We'll have to work with the applicant and the owner to establish some conditions, but as long as we're working together, that should be fine.
Okay, so the May, defer to the May meeting then. Okay, thank you. Any announcements or inquiries by members? Other than when's dinner? All right, scheduled meetings. The next meeting is Thursday, May 7th. And then there's meetings set for June 4th and July 2nd. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Committee Member Vian, Committee Member Kumar, all in favor? That one we agree on. We're done.